What's up, everybody, and welcome back. First things first, Happy New Year as we are finally into 2026. I shouldn't say finally because it seems like time has just been flying the last decade or so. But no, with that being said, for some of us, it's not so happy of a new year because the Lions, I don't know what's going on there. But actually, we will talk about that a little bit later as we're going to start with some happy news. Because, seems like on the show lately we've been talking a lot of negative topics, but unfortunately, when the Lions are not playing well, there's not much you can do about that. So, with that being said, though, there are some good things going on right now in the state of Michigan for football. Michigan has hired their new head coach, Kyle Whittingham, which we talked about a couple times on this show as a potential hire, but we weren't that excited about it necessarily. It was just like okay, I guess. I did mention on the show though that he might be the type of guy that is good for like not winning us a natty necessarily, but getting us over this issue, the scandal, getting us back to
Yeah.
regular Michigan football. So I am happy with it with for that reason, and I also feel like the more that I see of him, the more I get to know him, I like it even more. It seems like he is. I'm not gonna put it on him yet, but it does seem like he could be the guy that could right the ship for us here in Michigan. So, with that being said, too, he's also hired his entire staff at this point. He brought his offensive coordinator over from Utah, which Jason Beck is his name, and he is a pretty good offensive coordinator. He last year Utah was fourth in yards per game, fifth in points, and second in rushing, which if you're a Michigan fan hearing that, that's pretty good news, especially for a team like Utah that generally, isn't necessarily known to be a powerhouse. Let's just be honest. That's why guys like Whittingham are okay with leaving Utah and then coming to Michigan. Like he stepped down from the job and essentially retired, and then Michigan offered, and he was like, yeah, you know what? I think I'll come back. I think that sounds good. Um,
Facts.
5-year deal, right? He'll be 70 by the time it's over, by the way. But he doesn't look 65. I will say
Oh
he
my
seems
God,
like he's
no.
in pretty good shape. I was
You
very
see the
surprised
photo?
seeing him. I was like, damn, that dude looks like
You
he's
see the
50.
photo of him in the gym?
Yeah, dude's
I'm like, the
jacked.
dude looks like Dan Campbell.
Yeah, true.
Like, dude's just jacked.
And I like it too because he's not one of those older guys that you see that have bird legs and they're big up top. Like he's thick all the way through, so he's been doing this for
Leave
a
Pete
long
Carroll
time.
alone.
I don't know if he's thick up top either. I mean, to be fair,
No,
Pete
I'm
Carroll.
talking bird legs.
Yeah, true. Um, very true. But with that being said, he also hired his defensive coordinator Jay Hill from BYU, which was one of the only coaches that we actually brought over from a different school. Like 90% of the staff he brought with him from Utah. He also retained a couple guys like our running backs coach and a D line coach and a couple other guys as well. So he's building the staff. But Jay Hill, he took BYU from a I don't want to say terrible defense, but they were pretty bad. I mean, 99th in points and 109th in yards the year before he took over. And then the first year he was there, they bumped all the way up to 18th in points and 13th in yards. So almost 100 points or 100 ranking climb from where they were the season prior to adding him, which obviously has a lot to do with the head coach and his recruiting and things like that too. So it's not like he just walked in the door and they made them insanely good, but that's a good sign for Michigan as well, because he was a hot name too in this hiring cycle. So the
Yeah.
fact that we were able to get him with his pedigree and what he's going to do for us was pretty big, especially considering, like I said, he was one of the only coaches we brought from the outside. So pretty good overall, in my opinion. There, um, I do think that I blanked on Jay Hill. Somehow blanked
Yeah.
on his name already. I do think that Jay Hill is going to be a really good hire for us, and he'll bring a fire and a high IQ as a defensive coordinator. So I'm very excited from that standpoint with this coaching staff. I do feel like they're doing a really good job. And you might disagree with me, but it sort of feels like when Dan Campbell got here, and they were hiring all these guys, and it's like, well, that was a good hire. That's a good hire. that's a good hire. And generally, when that is the case, whether it be NFL or college, you're putting yourself in a very good spot going forward. Because think about it, we know Kyle Whittingham is 65 years old, but what happens if I don't know, maybe Jay Hill takes over in 2 or 3 years for him, or whatever the case may be, and you know that's a lot, kind of far way down the road, but still, that's kind of where we're thinking, because both of these guys are pretty young as well. So with that being said, though, what are your thoughts on the head coach and coordinator hires so far?
Um, I kind of have a mixed review because when we announced, well, not we announced, but when it was announced that Whittingham was the decision, I was, I don't want to be negative, but severely underwhelmed. Like, don't get me wrong, he's a solid coach. He will 100% do things the right way, keep us out of
Hmm.
controversy, right the ship in that front. But he doesn't, to me, have that wow factor. He doesn't have that name recognition. I know he's been doing this forever. He's been coaching at Utah since 20, 2005. Yeah, no, 2005. Spent 20 years over there. And as you said, he like stepped down. I don't know if he was going to retire or if he just wanted a change of scenery, but either way, like
Hmm.
he stepped down before uh, to my knowledge, if I, as long as I have my timeline correct, he stepped down before Moore was even fired.
Oh yeah.
'Cause- yeah, okay. I'm like, I think so. I'm like, correct me if I am wrong, but and
Well,
then
and before we move on from that
yeah,
point, though, apparently, so it sounds to me like Utah was kind of like ready to move on as well. So I don't want to say they forced him out, but they kind of told him, like, look, you can retire
yeah, I
or,
have heard something along those lines
yeah, because they had
myself.
their coach already. So I think he got
Mhm.
very lucky with how that process went.
Yeah, I heard something along those lines, but it was just from like random Utah fans on Twitter. So I'm like, I'm not gonna say that's the story because I don't know.
Hmm.
But but with that being said, as you mentioned, the staff he is bringing with him slash hiring, I think is elite. So while Winningham himself does not move the needle for me, Jay Hill and Jason Beck moved the needle for me. As you mentioned, Beck averaged 41 points a game at Utah. No offense to Utah. I know there's like a Michigan Utah alliance going on right now on Twitter. That was until we started poaching most of their staff too. But um, like they don't obviously have the same amount of, I'll just say, resources as Michigan has. So if they can put together a big enough crew, a good enough crew with the resources that Utah have, imagine what they can do with Michigan's resources. And same thing with Hill. BYU is a pretty good team right now. Like I think they finished 12th or something like that, ranked. Excuse me, getting over a cold or a flu or something. And yeah, first time I'm sick now. And but he's coached a damn good defense. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he allowed 19 points a game if I'm not wrong. So, and once again, BYU's not a scrub or anything, but they're not Michigan. They're not
Hmm.
like Alabama. They're not Georgia. So if you have an offensive coach who can put up 40 a game and a defensive coach that can keep you under or keep the opponents under 20 a game with the resources they had, it's at least the framework for something really special. And I don't want to get too far ahead here because I know you mentioned just the coordinators, but I really don't want to undermine bringing in Jim Harding either as our offensive line
Hmm.
coach. That is a immaculate hire, and he also, in addition to offensive line coach, got the assistant head coach position or title, I should say. So maybe he's the heir apparent or whatever, but obviously, Michigan, kind of like the Lions of at least last couple years, play a smash mouth. Like you have to have a solid O line, and we got all the guys in place. So like I said, Whittingham himself doesn't really move the needle for me, but the staff he put into place does. So I mean, I would at least give him 10 out of 10 for starters. Obviously, it's so early, but I'm curious to see what will happen once the I don't want to say the portal opens because obviously, if you've been online today or have notifications or whatever, your phone's blowing up with half the team leaving for half the teams in college football. So we'll see who goes where and whatnot. But yeah, as you mentioned, exciting in my opinion, exciting overall for Michigan. And I never would have thought that the scandal with Moore and whatnot, when we were talking a week or two ago, may have, I would say, on paper, made us a better team and a better staff.
Hmm.
Like, I didn't think we would get upgrades from this. I thought we would at least have a down year or two, but, and maybe we will. Obviously, we still got to play out the years, but on paper, so far, so good.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on that, I personally am really liking the hire of Whittingham. Like, like you mentioned before, it was a little bit underwhelming, you know, when it first happened, but as things are going and as things are progressing, it definitely seems as though, like you mentioned, he's doing a good job building his staff. He's also already doing a good job recruiting, at least in-house with the players, meeting with every player. He mentioned during the Michigan-Texas game, it took him 23 hours or something like that to meet in person with every player, whether they were staying or leaving. So he definitely seems like the kind of guy, like I said before, to right this ship. And his age obviously is a little bit of a factor, but at the end of the day, we really only need him for the next 2 or 3 years to get us back to where we want to be. So, some really good, news, I guess you can say. It's not really news because Bryce Underwood, I think we all assumed he would stay, but he's obviously going to stay in Michigan. So now some good things with that is it seems as though Whittingham knows what he wants to do with Bryce and likes what he has with Bryce. So that should be a positive sign, going forward for the Michigan offense because as we all know, as Michigan fans, the offense, especially passing, just was not great this year. And when you go out and spend that much money on a quarterback, and although he is a true freshman, I get that, but still, it just wasn't great. I mean, we saw a kid out in Cal as a true freshman put on a show every week. So I don't know if I want to hear the true freshman excuse anymore, personally, especially because it seemed like he didn't get better as the season progressed. And that's the key that scared me. But at the end of the day, with how everything goes, I'll give him a mulligan and figure it was just because of the coaching staff. Specifically, Sharon Moore had his own issues going on where he wasn't able to focus on making Bryce Underwood a better player.
I
So
I do feel like he might have been distracted by something.
maybe just a smidge of distraction there. Not like he was arguing and fighting with coaches and crying about how hard it was to be a head coach or anything. Not it wasn't that crazy, but it was pretty rough. Um, but with that being said, I to wrap this up, I do feel like Whittingham is the guy for us right now. And I'm excited in general over the scheme that we're going to have next year because I do think some things are going to change, both offensive and defensively. So, really good things going forward for Michigan after what was an absolute shit show the last like month or two. And I mean, the season wasn't that great either on top of it. So, with that being said, though, we will now move on and just quickly talk about the Michigan versus Texas game because you know what? I was pleasantly surprised by how Michigan played for about 3 quarters. It was a really good game for about 3 quarters. And then I don't know what happened. We just shit the bed, really, I guess. Arch Manning completely tore us apart, running the ball. Not even, I mean, he did a good job passing too, don't get me wrong. But when your quarterback has 9 carries for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns, you're getting cooked, brother. I'm sorry, that's disgusting. Especially considering he also had 221 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. So it's not like it was just one of those games where they're running the ball every play. Um, so our defense definitely got cooked a little bit. But, like we talked about going into the game, it doesn't mean that much at the end of the day. And honestly, the fact that we were just able to come out and fight with these guys for 3 quarters with everything that was going on while missing guys like Derek Moore and, a lot of key players, in our specifically defensively.
Yeah,
And I know
14
Texas was
guys
down a lot of
total,
guys. Yeah, and I know Texas was down a lot of guys
a
too, but
handful.
still,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like Texas was a better team coming in, and we kind of figured it wouldn't be pretty. So I'm okay with how it went, simply because we were at least able to make it a game. However, my biggest issue, once again, and I think I say this every week, Bryce Underwood, bro. I I don't know. It's like watching, and I get it. We're going to see him next year with a new staff, new scheme, new players, and all types of things. So I'm, withholding full judgment due to that. But I just haven't really seen much from him this season that makes me go, you know, I see it. I see the star potential, and there's just some kinks we have to iron out. I don't s- I, Look, man. I don't want to sit up here and say that Bryce Underwood is not good and he's not going to be good. But from what I have seen this season, and I haven't watched every single play either. I'm not going to say that I have.
I
He
have.
well, and I mean I've watched most
No,
of the
no, I'm just
games.
saying when you pass it over, because so far you are locked in
Okay.
where I'm at as well.
So,
So
I don't want to say he's a bust because I don't think he is. I think he was a true freshman dealing with a lot of things that doesn't have a great receiving core, and the O line wasn't great. To be fair, okay, I know
I know
those
someone
things
that
are
said they
true.
don't care that he was a true freshman.
Who's that?
You 5 minutes ago.
Oh,
I'm like, you 5 minutes ago, man.
yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. I know that he is a true freshman, and that's the talking point that everyone's gonna say. But like that's what I was getting to is I don't care necessarily that he is a true freshman because like he needs to show flashes at the end of the day. Like that's what I'm
uh,
talking about. I'm not asking him to go out there and throw for, 500 yards every week, but it's like he had one game over 300 yards this year and it was against Central Michigan, I believe. So it's like not great. And even then he doesn't make a ton of throws every week even when he has his low, yardage totals that look great. So,
I could be mistaken, but I do think in the fourth quarter he had more completions to Texas than he did to his receivers.
Jesus.
I don't
And
know
that
that for a fact, but I know he had 3 interceptions all in the fourth quarter.
and
So,
that's why we got blown out. I mean, at the end of the
oh
day,
yeah, the game
you
was
know.
relatively close, but once we put the game on Bryce Underwood, like it's the fourth quarter, we're losing. Go try to win us this game and throw the ball. That's where everything fell apart is when we made him throw the ball.
Hmm.
Um,
And maybe
I'm
that's
kind
why
of
they decided not to do it all year. I mean, we were asking for it all season, but
correct, and I was I would hope that even if this, let's say this is why they didn't do it all season, go through those growing pains, let him have those learning experiences or whatever, because he does have a cannon for an arm, but he reminds me so much of Anthony Richardson
I thought you were going to say
or
Joe Milton.
Joe Milton. That was
I
coming.
would say Anthony Richardson was much better than either of those guys in college,
And
though, to be fair.
I would even borderline saying, and I don't mean his final year, but like early on Josh Allen. Like
Mm.
I see he has some of the tools and whatnot, but he can't aim it for shit. like and like I said, maybe he goes through growing pains and maybe he'll get it down eventually. Or like Troy Milton, maybe he just never gets it together. Like I do not know. As I said before on multiple shows, I was a giant defender, like oh he's just a true freshman. He just turned 18 literally like 2 days before the season, blah blah blah. He was the same guy, if not worse, at the end of the season than he was week one. So
Yeah.
to me, like I was defending him for so long, and I know people have dug up old tweets like, "Oh, didn't you like him?" I'm like, "Yeah, opinions can change people, like they can,"
Hmm.
and he has not shown those flashes remotely frequently enough. And obviously, as you get more experience, they will flash more often. But he might have had three, four, like quality throws on the whole year, and like none really popped to my head. But I know just sitting down watching the game because I did watch every game and I did watch every snap. Some of those were not fun to go through, but I did. And there were a handful of times I remember sitting on my couch. I'm like, there it is. Why don't we see that more often? But
Hmm.
sitting here today, I can't be like, oh, remember he had that throw against Ohio State? Like, I can't pinpoint him. But I do remember from time to time being like, finally, just do that more often.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's not there. So, like, I was, and if you follow me on X, you know this. Um, like, I honestly don't care if we keep him. Like if he wants to transfer, like if he wants to be like, hey, like the new coaches, whatever, I don't vibe with them, that's fine. Good luck. Like I'm not gonna woo the day you went somewhere else. And if he goes somewhere else, let's say LSU, because that's who we took him from, and he's like fantastic over there, cool. Then they got something out of him we couldn't. But like, it's just not working right now. And like I said, maybe he can develop, but uh, not a lot of good things to like hang your hat on. Like, oh, coming into next year, we still have Bryce Underwood. Like, I personally do not care.
See, I'm not quite that far yet. I do still am like, okay, we got Bryce Underwood. As long as he takes a step, we could actually be a problem. But I do agree with you that it's like, he just hasn't shown, much of anything. I mean, there's been a couple flashes, but not something you'd want out of a guy who was supposed to be the savior of our freaking program. And, he stayed home in Michigan and he's going to come over and win in Cincinnati and all this shit. And it's like, well, let's pump our brakes a little bit on that, folks. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, he might not be the savior of Michigan football.
We've never seen a freshman like him. His words.
I mean, I don't know if we have.
That is true, but it's not
To be
necessarily
fair.
for a good reason.
Right. I don't know
Also,
if
he
we've ever
came
seen a
in.
freshman with so much hype not really do
He
that
came
well.
in with the highest, like, because we've had 5 stars before, but he
Hmm.
came in with like the highest whatever grade in Michigan program history. So
Hmm.
like higher than Rashawn Gary, higher than Hutch. Like we've had good players be here.
Right.
Like obviously Tom Brady was solid, but he wasn't the GOAT when he was at Michigan. That's why he
Hmm.
went in the 7th round. Like let's keep that real. But like we've had some solid ass players here. He's outranked all of them, and yet this is the performance we get.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't want to say I'm giving up on him, but I just wouldn't be sad either. I'm just neutral on him.
Yeah, and I definitely agree there. I would say I'm pretty neutral. We'll see what happens. But with that being said, moving on, as you mentioned before, January 2nd today is the beginning of the transfer portal opening. Now, Michigan, luckily, like, look, I know we've lost a decent amount of players, but there's only a few that are actually probably going to make a difference for us in the next year or two. And it always sucks to lose players, but I don't think we're really losing as many players as I thought we would, honestly, just based on everything that happened. I was very worried there would be a large portion of our players leaving. But for notable names, wide receiver Samaj Morgan or Samaje Morgan. I always say that wrong. I always forget which way
Samaj.
it is. Samaj, okay. Uh, Cole Sullivan, linebacker, defensive back Eli Dotson, running back Jasper Parker, and defensive back Zeke Berry were like the big names that I saw on the list. I know a lot of those guys, most of those guys didn't really play. Well, maybe not. Dotson and Morgan and Sullivan and Berry all played a decent amount for us this year, but
Yeah,
I
Barry
don't
and
know
Dodson were
if,
starters.
yeah, I don't
Sullivan
know
was,
if
yeah,
I mean, I almost think Sullivan. I would say Sullivan and Dotson are probably the biggest losses.
oh, by far.
Um, and I like Barry, but I do feel like there was a handful of times this year that I was just like, all right, bro, we might need to take him off the field.
Yeah,
So,
he had those flashes of being a
hmm,
great corner, but
hmm,
lacked the consistency. So he had high highs, low lows. So
yeah.
once again, I'm not gonna rue the day he's gone, but like I wasn't kicking him out the door either. But
Yeah, and Sullivan, like you said, is definitely a big one. Might be the biggest one. But I also feel like we still have a chance to get him back based on some of the things that he said when he left. He was like, I really like the coach here. He seems like he's got everything handled to go in the right way and da 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 da. Da. So it seems like a money thing, if you ask me. He's more just like I'm testing my value or whatever. He just
yeah,
wants to see what he
everything
can
I've
do.
read on him says it's pure money.
Yeah,
Because he even said that he's open to coming back.
yeah.
So
So I mean, I'm okay with that. I would like Michigan to get him back. I would definitely give him that bread, but we'll see what happens. There's a lot of movement in the transfer portals, so I mean, who knows? We might be able to replace him. Um,
we can give him some of Underwood's NIL.
right. Be like, hey, Underwood, you remember how you were supposed to be the best freshman ever? You weren't. So do you want to give us half of that back so we can try to go get you some better players? Be like, look, man, Tom Brady did it himself in New England. Okay, it happened, and he won
Constantly.
Super Bowls. Do we need to call him? I'm sure he'll talk to
You'd pick up the phone.
you.
You'd pick up
Yeah,
the
you
phone
would.
for Michigan.
He definitely would. But with that being said, I'm not too worried about our transfer portal right now, and I do think with what we're doing with our staff, I do think we're going to be able to get some good transfer portal guys to come in. So I'm excited to see how these next few days kind of pan out, and we will definitely stay updated and update as the time goes on Twitter as always, and talk about it a little bit more next week. Because by next week, the majority of the transfer stuff will probably be passing. So it won't be over yet, but you know how it goes with like NBA or NFL free agency. It's like, hey, the first 3 days, all the big guys get signed, and then we just kind of wait around for the next 2 weeks until the draft. So, with that being said, though, moving on from Michigan to Michigan State, not too much going on in Michigan State, not like Michigan, so it's going to be kind of a fast conversation. In my opinion, though, at Michigan State right now, they're doing a good job. They got, Fitzgerald over there, and I do feel like this is a very big transfer portal for them because, as we know, Nick Marsh is leaving among other guys that were starters or, played a decent amount at Michigan State. They really need an influx of talent, man. And I do feel like they haven't done the greatest job the last few years in high school recruiting. So it's not like you have a bunch of 5 stars waiting in the wings. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have to go hard at the transfer portal. And I don't know. If I'm a Michigan State fan, I'm not really excited for next season for a multitude of reasons. And number one is because I don't think they're going to be a very good football team. Like, I just don't see it. Like, do I think they're going to be, a 1-win team? Not necessarily. I don't see them that bad, but I think they'll probably win 4-5 games. If I'm being
Wow,
honest
I'm
with you.
higher on
Like,
them than you are.
and that's the thing. Like, it depends on how this transfer portal goes. Okay, if
Fair
they
enough.
do, if
Fair
they
enough.
don't do well, I see not great. I don't think it's gonna do. They're gonna be very good at all. However, if they go out, they recruit well. Their quarterback, their freshman quarterback from this past season, he takes another step in the offseason. Then we might be talking about 8, 9, maybe even 10 wins over at Michigan State.
All right, you
And
went from too low to too ambitious.
See, and that's the thing, and that's why I do think the transfer portal is so big for them right now because I do think they could make that big of a swing depending on who they get, of course, because there are a decent amount of really good players hitting the transfer portal every year, so
Yeah.
they should have the opportunity to get some, but it's going to be hard for them considering their recent success or lack thereof, I should say. And really, that's really all we got for Michigan State this week. Not really too much going on. Like I mentioned, Nick Marsh is entering. He's leaving for sure. He is visiting with Indiana though, so I think it'd be crazy if he ends up there, which I do think has a very high likelihood of happening, especially if they go far in the college football playoff. But anything to add before we move on?
Oh, not really, but since you brought up Indiana, the only thing I wanted to mention is I'm spacing on their coach's name. But he's
Signetti.
only yes, he's only I believe 2 years younger than Whittingham. So I mean, older coaches can still get things done,
Oh yeah,
as
for
we see
sure.
with Indiana.
Right.
Um,
And the thing I'll tell you what, I loved watching Indiana beat Ohio State. That was awesome. I almost liked it more watching them beat Alabama like that, dude.
oh
Like
yeah,
that was nasty.
I was saying like
Like they
Miami beat Ohio State, but you mentioned yeah,
No,
okay.
yeah, no, Miami beating Ohio State was even better because that was the playoffs. That was nice to see them get put. You got to go home, buddy. You don't get another
Yeah.
game.
Not only that, there were uh, potentially three, but I'd say at least two guys on Miami that I have circled for the Lions for the
Oh yeah.
draft. So
Oh
we'll
yeah.
get to that eventually. But
Yeah.
um, that was a
It's
nice
definitely
performance for them.
Miami, in my opinion, dominates the trenches better than anybody not named Indiana, really. That's left in the playoffs. So I think it'd be awesome if we saw those two in the national
I'm
championship.
down. Yeah.
And I think it could go either way too, but I do have Indiana, I think, taking it home this year because man, they're the Cinderella story and they are doing it right now.
It would be kind
So
of insane to have three consecutive Big Ten teams win the Natty. So
yeah, and they say the NCAA runs through the SEC. Shut your bitch ass up. Nobody wants to
yeah,
hear that shit
in
no more.
the 2010s and shit. But
Yeah, right. Back when you couldn't pay players. You damn right you had all the good
I
ones
say when
because
Bama was
you
paying, no one
weren't.
else was. Yeah.
Right. But with that being said, moving on to the not so good news. The Detroit Lions.
And our
Honestly,
viewers
dude,
cut in half. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
that sounds about right. Honestly though, like I'm so over this season. Honestly, I don't even care about this Sunday. Like, I want us to win, don't get me wrong, because if we lose to the Bears on top of it, like, that's just going to hurt. I think it's one of those things that's like, look, if we lose, we get a better draft pick, and I'm aware of that. Okay. Would I be pissed off, like, oh my God, I can't believe we lost? No, because we get the draft pick. However, I would be pissed off because it's like, look, man, this is not a team that's ever played for draft picks. Okay. Dan Campbell,
Yeah.
you need to go out there and get a fucking win, or else we got some problems. Okay. Because you just lost to the damn Steelers, who just lost to the Browns, by the way. And then you lost to the Vikings on Christmas Day by 13 points when their freaking quarterback had 57 passing yards, bro. You sacked their quarterback 7 times and lost by 13 points. I'm getting to the point now where it's just sad, man. It's sad. Like watching our football team it's not fun anymore. It's like, all right, here we go. Got to see some more bullshit.
Well, didn't we lose games early on because we didn't have a pass rush, and now we do and still lose?
It's crazy. It's almost like our offense has just shit the bed the last 2 weeks completely. And then on top of that, our defense can't stop the fucking run. We can't stop the run at all. Like, dude, if we look at the stats against the Vikings, okay, they
We
had,
have
let's
to.
see, they had
I know.
100, dude, they had a net of 3 passing yards, bro.
Hmm. And then one.
158 rushing yards, and they beat us. We had 68 rushing yards. Jameer Gibbs had 17 carries for 41 yards. Okay. Jordan Addison, 1 carry for 65 yards that went for a touchdown. Okay. Gross. And look, I'm not going to sit here and act like our defense was just total dog shit the whole game. It wasn't. It really wasn't. As I just said, 7 sacks. And outside of that one Jordan Addison run, they only let up like, I mean, 80-ish yards, 90 yards rushing total. So, I mean, if you think about it that way, that's not that bad. But something is wrong right now in Detroit, man. Something is totally wrong. And I'll tell you what, I said it last week, I said it the week before. Grit doesn't exist here anymore. I don't know if you've noticed it. We even stopped saying that shit. We don't even say it no more. Like, what is going on, man?
Oh, we can't.
Well,
Like you
that's
said,
my point.
we
It's
get
like,
we get bullied in the trenches. We can't come out here, get our ass kicked, and be like, grit.
but that's my point. Is it's like we came into the season without it. We walked into Green Bay without grit and got our fucking asses kicked. And then we went in and we won a couple games and made it look like we were back. And then, boom, dropped again. And now look where we're at. Out of the playoffs for the first time in 3 seasons. And we are. I'm not. We're obviously not the bottom of the NFC or NFC North in terms of record. We're the worst team in the NFC North. We are. I mean, we lost to the Vikings twice. Like, you can't sit here and tell me that a team we lost to twice is worse than us. I don't give a fuck what their record is. They could be 2-14. They beat us twice. It's like, dude,
And unfortunately, both times convincing.
yeah, and like just beat our ass, out physicaled us all game long, and especially on the defensive side, man. Like their defense bullies us every year, and it happened last year too. The only difference is we came back to win that game. I don't know if you remember that game the first time we played them last season, and
Was it the last
they
second
were
field goal?
I think so. They were up like 24-6 or some shit at halftime, and we somehow came back and won on I believe, like you said, a last second field goal. That did not happen this year. We just got beat up and down the field by them. And it's just gross. So to reel it back in a little bit, to go over my notes, basically nothing I wanted to happen happened, unfortunately, because, I wanted to run the damn ball. Well, we talked about that. That didn't happen. I wanted to see Ratledge at center. That didn't happen. We kept Guakun there. I wanted to see more Frazier. Didn't really see more of him. I mean, not as much as I would like to have seen. And if you ask me, dude, this week at Chicago, our offensive line better look like this: Taylor Decker, Mahogany, Ratledge, Frazier, and then I would probably say Skipper. I don't know if I really want to see Manu out there. I feel like, look, man, he's been on IR all year. I don't really know if putting him out there would be a good idea for him, for his own confidence. Like, he got beat up the first time, coming off an injury. I just don't know. So I think that's what should happen, and I thought that's what should happen last week, and it didn't. And I mean, we got beat up yet again. Tesla was one of the only things that I was excited about going into this game that actually ended up doing anything. Because as we know, he did catch that touchdown. So, and he had 3 catches for 49 yards. So a little bit more production than what we're used to seeing from him, which was really nice to see.
Yeah, when we've targeted, I mean, pretty much every game this year, when we target him, he does something, like more
Hmm.
times than not. I know a lot of people have complained online about spending 3 third round picks, but I'm convinced at this point, like, I'm not gonna say I've seen some people compare him to like Puka Nakua and shit. I'm not saying that, but I do think maybe even next year, but definitely 2 years from now, because even Campbell said in the rookie class he feels like Tesla has grown more than anyone else. I do feel like in a year or two we will be talking about how much that is a steal for him. So we'll
I
see.
gotta disagree. I have to
We'll
disagree
see.
there because think about it this way, right?
Just because we
If
have other
you
receivers.
Not just because, I mean,
Okay.
giving up 3 third round picks for a third round pick is fucking asinine. Like that, just say that out loud and tell me that's a good idea. I
It's
gave
a
up
great
three
idea.
third round picks. I mean, I guess you can physically
It
do
was
it.
an early, yeah, it was an early third because I think it was like 30 spots because the third round has all the comp picks and stuff. So I think the earliest third round pick we gave up was like 30 spots up. So it was kind of like jumping an entire round up in that sense. Um and don't get me wrong, I think there was a chance, and I've said this before and was wrong, but I'll say it again. I think there's a chance we could have potentially stood pat and drafted him at one of our other picks, or maybe traded up not 30 spots, maybe only 15, gave up a little less and still got him. But um, I'm still glad we have the player. But
Right. No, I can definitely agree with you there. I'm glad we have the player. Like at the end of the day, I even said it right after we made the trade. I was like, look, I fucking hate the value. I think it's a dog shit trade, but I really like the player. So at the end of the day, if he ends up
I
being a
can agree.
stud, it is what it is. But I will say it this way, right? From a team building standpoint, okay? If you're this to me was like one of those it was one of those draft picks where it was like a the ultimate like accessory item, if that makes sense. It's like spending $600 on a fucking pair of sunglasses when you live in Michigan. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, we don't really need that right now, and we have other things that we do need, okay? And we don't have millions of dollars to just go wasting on bullshit. So it's kind of like the Lions, what was our biggest problem, would you say, this year as an offense? I think everybody would agree offensive line, right?
This year, yeah, absolutely.
By far. Instead of, I don't know, drafting another offensive lineman, maybe we take all this capital and trade up for a wide receiver when we already have 2 wide receivers who are signed for the next at least 4 seasons. And they're both making $30 million a year, by the way.
To be fair, JMO wasn't signed at that point. Now,
I
don't get
mean,
me
but
wrong.
it was we knew it
I'm
was
like, you know
happening.
me, I'm not letting JMO walk. But
But Brad Holmes knew that was happening when he made that trade. He knew for a fact he was re-signing JMO, and he probably even knew the dollar amount. Because as a GM, you're already, I mean, he was already having conversations with his agent. That's a guarantee. Without a doubt, they were already having discussions. So, like, I know maybe it was a Brad Holmes being trying to get ahead of himself, but I think that's part of the problem is lately what we've seen the last 2 drafts is he gets a little too ahead of himself and oh, I'm going to draft back-to-back corners because then we will never have a problem again. Oh, well, the second guy doesn't play ever. And the first guy, he's been all right, but he's hurt all the time too. So it's one of those things that like we had bigger needs and it felt like he just decided, look, I love the player. And again, is this an indictment on Brad Holmes like overall? No, I don't think that
yes. Oh, no.
necessarily. I mean, you could say it, I guess, but I don't think, and I know you were joking, but like, I
Yes.
don't think it is really because of how good he's been. But I said it all offseason this year. This was the biggest offseason for Brad Holmes as a Detroit Lions GM, simply because we actually have expectations now. And it's not just, hey, go get the best player no matter what position because we need them all. Now it's, what do we need? Go get the best player. And it doesn't seem like he's done a great job of doing that the last few years, to be fair.
No, I agree with that.
But I don't want to sit here and rag on Brad Holmes or anything. I'm just simply talking about the value we gave up for the player. Like that's 3 Jalen Phillipses. I don't know. I'm just saying. Like if you think about
Hey,
it that way.
when we had our trade deadline show, I remember saying Jalen Phillips was my number one DN at the deadline. So I'm like, I would have been for that.
Hmm.
Obviously, we didn't have a third.
And but another thing, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, is the biggest problem I have with a lot of the people that talk about this situation is they will then turn around and say it was a good idea to not give a third round pick for Jalen Phillips because value and capital and Brad Holmes is so good at drafting. It's like, but it was okay to give 3 fucking third round picks for a guy who barely plays. Gotcha. You know what I mean? It's like, are you in a cult? Do you need to blink twice if you need help? Because something ain't right here. Your
Yes, but it
logic
has
ain't
nothing to do with the
logicking.
Lions.
Right. Plot twist.
Yeah. And the one thing I will say, and like you said, I'm not trying to pile on Brad Holmes, but just a thought that came up in my head when you were talking about the value that we gave up to move up for Tesla is in one of the Inside the Dens, back when they put out draft videos for Inside the Den. Um, he's
Throwback.
not bitter about that still or anything, but he said that in the draft with Levi Onwuzurike that he was trying to trade up into the back half of the first round for Onwuzurike.
Hmm.
So obviously he was able to stay pat and get him with the second, but
Imagine if he did that. Oh my god.
exactly.
Oh
So
my
I'm just
god.
like, it
And
obviously
we
didn't
traded up for
work out.
Broderick Martin.
Yeah. So sometimes it doesn't work out. I still like the fact he's aggressive and goes gets his guys because sometimes it does. Like
Hmm.
he traded up for Brian Branch. He traded up for JMO. So like sometimes it's the draft. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So um yeah, like I still like the aggressiveness. I like the mindset. I'll
Yeah.
say that much. And like I said, I like the player. Not gonna lie, obviously mock drafts aren't real, but I did have I think Tesla mocked to us in like the sixth. But
Which
yeah,
I mean,
it's
we talked about Tesla literally like a week or two before the draft. That I
yep.
was like 4th, 5th round, perfect pick. He can block, he's big, he can run, he can catch. Literally the reasons we drafted him, I wanted him. It's just at the end of the day, man, the value. And I know everybody's laughing because, well, remember what everybody said about Jameer Gibbs and Jack Campbell and their value. That's different.
We
Okay, that's
can't compare Gibbs to
positional.
Tesla.
But it's not even that. It's like even if Tesla becomes that good, it's not positional value that we're talking about here. It is simply you gave up this X amount for this one player. Now we'll see what it comes to and what happens, but let's be realistic. There's only so much he can even do statistically with the offense we have, the quarterback we have, and the 2 receivers that we have, man. We're not gonna have the greatest show on turf LA Rams where, 3 1,000-yard receivers. That's just not gonna happen here, I don't think. Like, so what is
If you
really gonna
count
be
tight
his
ends, I think
usage?
we might.
Yeah, that I maybe that's
Like I
val,
said,
but that's
might,
another
might.
but that's another point too. Sam Laporta, that's another mouth to feed, man, and we're gonna have to pay his ass. So what are we gonna do? And we just saw that Laporta, in my opinion, might be the biggest X factor to our entire offense working because he went down, and man, our offense just
Oh,
fell off
we
a fucking
crumbled
cliff.
after that.
And it's because we can't block nobody with our tight ends. We can't rely on our tight ends to be, receivers consistently. So that washes down a whole part of our playbook. Like, okay, what do we do now? Like,
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to mention before I forget to. Um, Although it was very, very close this week, Montgomery averaged 2.5 a carry to Gibbs 2.4. This still marks game 7 of the last 8 where Montgomery averaged more yards per carry than Gibbs.
and
So,
I think that goes to like what we talked about before. Our offense these last few weeks are give the ball to Jameer Gibbs and see what happens. In the last few weeks, ain't shit happened. Unfortunately, like it's great when we give him the ball 20 times a game, which I don't think we ever really have done, other than if you count receptions. But it's good when you give him the ball 15 to 20 times a game and he breaks 3 of them for 60. That sounds awesome. But it's reminds me, and maybe you don't remember this, but Saquon Barkley in New York, the like after his rookie season, he had like 2 or 3 years where it seemed like every play he was either breaking open for 20 yards or getting tackled for -5. Every play. And that's kind of how it feels with Jameer Gibbs now, where it's like You hand him the ball, and he's either breaking it for 20 yards or getting tackled for 4. And I feel like that is more of an indictment on the offensive line than the players. And the reason I bring up Saquon is because look at him now in Philly, where he's got an elite offensive line again, and he's
Oh
elite
yeah,
again. And
borderline
that's where I'm
MVP,
at.
blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're at. Where we can blame the players, the play call, whatever the scheme. At the end of the day, the offensive line ain't getting it done, and that's all it is, in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
we've seen it so many times this season, and I think that goes hand in hand with like, should we draft offensive linemen? Now, personally, I think there's a chance we don't need to, but I still think we do. I think at this point we have to. Like, even if he's a backup, you got to get another one. And I'm not
Oh,
saying first
absolutely.
round, but at some point
Penton,
early.
we'll see where we pick, but if we
Hmm.
can somehow, some way get that tackle from Florida, I'm sorry, not Florida, Miami,
Miami, yeah.
um, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm all for it, but my problem is where does he play next year?
In my opinion, right tackle, we'll just move Sewell over to left.
Where's Decker?
I'm assuming he retires.
He's
He's
not.
already talking about it.
I mean, that's possible, I guess, but I don't think he does. But if he does, then yeah, that we obviously have to go tackle in that first round, and Myoga would be a great one. But with that being said, we will save the draft talk,
Yeah,
most of it
we have
for as the
months for that.
offseason. Exactly. So, um, kind of just wrapping up the Vikings game. Basically, our defense was not great. Our offense was hot butt. It was just one of those things where it was just frustrating to watch. And honestly, like it was Christmas Day, so I was watching the game, but around halftime, I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna catch a couple plays every so often. Oh, we suck again. Awesome. All right, back to whatever I was doing. you know, and I'm to the point, and I know I said it a couple weeks ago that I don't believe in curses and all that, and I still don't. But I am to the point where it does feel like 2011 all over again. Like it feels like we're just back to mediocrity. And the reason I say that is, and to wrap this whole conversation up, it goes back to the last two drafts that Brad Holmes has had. They have not been good enough to stay atop the NFL. And until we get back to having drafts where, and I know it's going to sound crazy that I say this, until we get put to the point where we have drafts like we did with, you know, getting 4 starters in the first 4 rounds, we are going to have issues. And I know people are going to say, well, you can't expect every draft to go this good. How do you think the Patriots stayed so good for so long, folks? It wasn't by
Tom Brady.
fucking accident. Tom Brady, guess what? He's 6th round draft pick. That's what I'm saying. They take these guys, they develop them, they make them better. I mean, it was a thing. Belichick every year. Uh, uh, Trey Flowers is a perfect example. He got drafted in like the 4th or 5th round. Exactly. That reaction is exactly what I'm talking about. He got drafted in the 4th or 5th round in New England, went over there, was a stud,
Yep.
played enough to, make a shit ton of money from the Lions, came over here and sucked. And it's like, that's what the good teams do. And that's my point.
That's because they had Matt Patricia and we did. Oh wait, no, never mind.
Yeah. And speaking
But
of Matt
Ohio
Patricia,
State has them, and look at never
I was
mind.
going to say, speaking of Matt Patricia, catch that L, boy. You sitting at home just like me. We are the same, except you got millions, but we ain't talking about that. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I'm like that's a different conversation.
And you
Like I
probably
told an
even,
Ohio State fan today. I'm just like, I know you guys made the playoffs and all that, but Michigan and Ohio State have the same amount of playoff wins this year.
right. The only bad part about that is in college, there's no draft pick. So you can't be like, and we got a higher draft pick. Because I love doing that in the NFL. When the Lions sucked for so long, like the Packers would not make the playoffs or get beat in the first round. And I'd be like, look, now you're just like us, but we got a better draft pick.
Yeah,
um,
that's back when the draft was our Super Bowl.
Hey man, and it's looking like it might be
It
this
was
year
for a while.
quite
Oh man,
yet again. So this draft is going to be a huge one for us. But with that being said, yeah, just a rough game in Minnesota. And moving on to this week's game against the Bears, obviously not really too much to say about it because it is a very meaningless game. The Bears, they don't even need to win this game really. Like it'd be better if they won it simply because seeding, but they have a home playoff game no matter what. So doesn't really matter at this point for Chicago. So I wouldn't be surprised if they rested Caleb and decided, they're not going to. It doesn't look like they're going to, but I wouldn't be surprised if he even just plays the first quarter. You know what I mean? Like get him out of there because they're playing for the playoffs and we're not. So if we lose this game, I say that all to say if we lose this game, we are fucked. Like I said this about the Minnesota game, and I feel even more about like that about the Bears game because, dude, just losing 4 games in a row like that to end the season, it would set the tone in such a negative way going into next season for the Lions players, like players and coaches, man. Like, I know us fans, we'll get over it in like a month because we'll be worried about the draft and shit anyway. If we lose, like you mentioned before, if we lose, higher draft pick, it is what it is. I don't really care. But if you're a player on this team and you lose and you're sitting there going, man, what the fuck is going on here, dude? Like, that's
Not
rough.
only that, like obviously that, but not only that. As like you mentioned, we fans sit here, and I personally, I would never root against the Lions, but I kind of hope we do lose this game. I'm not gonna, say bear down or some shit. Besides this, as an example, but like we're not gonna give up a touchdown, and I'll be like, yes, better draft pick. But I do hope we lose and get a better draft pick, because winning doesn't do shit for us. And the Bears, like you mentioned, they're not playing for seeding. Seattle is already over them no matter what. So, like, it's not like we can knock the Bears out of the playoffs and play spoilers or anything like that.
Hmm.
And then, but from the players' perspective, not only are you losing 4 straight, but that does give us a better draft pick. And who knows? Obviously, we don't know who we're drafting. No one knows who we're drafting. And those players in the locker room might be the guy getting replaced by that draft pick. So, obviously, it can be a good feeling in the locker room right now.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that too, right now, if we win or lose this game, it could actually change our draft pick quite a bit because there's a lot of
Hmm.
teams that have a very similar record to us. So like, the Dolphins and the Ravens are, 8-8 and 7-9, and they could either flip their record with us and jump up to the 15th pick that we have right now when we go all the way back to like 22nd. So, it is a good point that fans at least should be probably looking at this like how much
Oh
farther
yeah,
can we jump in the draft for sure.
yeah, the coaches and players are going to play their asses off. Like
Yeah,
that's I hope not debatable by anyone.
right. And that's kind of where I'm
Obviously,
at. Like as a coach personally, I look at it from that perspective
mm,
of like, what would Dan Campbell say after that game if they lose? Like, what are you gonna
oh,
say to
he'd be
these
throwing
guys?
shit. Like,
Right. Like, but
yeah.
how do you keep these guys like with you for next season? Because we just fell off. We face planted, man. This whole season was a big ass face plant.
Oh,
Like,
100%. It is it, it double sucks because Michigan kind of face planted and now Lions are face planting.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, and
yeah, there really is no saving our season. Obviously, it's too little, too late, no matter what happens. So yeah, like I said, it's gonna suck because I obviously can't stand the Bears and I really enjoyed beating them by 30. But it benefits us for the long term to have the better picks because not only does that give us a better pick in round one, but all the other rounds we move up
mhm.
those amount of spots too. Because as I'm looking at it, I don't know exactly the tiebreakers. I don't know, like the Dolphins' divisional record and all that stuff right now. But it looks like we can pick anywhere from 11 to 18 right now.
Mhm.
So right now we sit at 15, but we can go as high as 11. So I mean
And that'd
that's
be a big difference maker right there
yeah,
for
from
us.
11 to 18 is huge. Like I know from 15's not that drastic, but at the same time, like that's just where we are in week 17
Well, and I
or
mean, think
18.
about
Never
it
mind.
too. Like, if we get the 11th pick, there's a chance for a trade down there, and we could get that third round pick back that we lost, and then we could have another pick to try to get some good players. Because I do think, a lot of people are talking about this draft is not great, and it's not the greatest top tier talent wise. It's similar to last year in that way, but I do think there's a lot of good players in the mid rounds that you can get. So we could use the extra picks.
There's a
But with that
handful of
being,
guys that
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I
You're
don't
good.
want to get too much into draft talk, but I would say like this year more than some other years, the guys I'm looking at in early mocks that are going like 11, 12, 13 are a lot better in my opinion than the 16, 17, 18. It's
Hmm.
not it's not just like, oh, it's just 1 or 2 picks away. I'm like it could could obviously we don't know how they pan out, but it could be a pretty big difference. But
Yeah, and I mean it could be as big a difference as like getting Ruben Bain versus like a Cassius Howell or something from Texas A&M, which is a huge discrepancy in the type of player that you're getting. I don't think Ruben
exactly.
Bain will make it that far, but there are
No, the
talks
mock I
that he
have pulled
might.
up, he's going number 3.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But with that being said, this week against the Bears, I really just want to see like what we have in the players, like Ratledge playing center. I want to see more Frazier out there, kind of like what I said with last week, but even more. Like I want to see Vaki play some running back. I want to see like what we got everywhere, whether that be offense or defense. And like I said, it's not that you're going into this game like hoping to lose or tanking or anything like you said, but you're also understanding it is a quote unquote meaningless game. So you want to see what you got out of your guys, but you still want to get a win. So personally, I'm hoping for the win, but I guess, I'm not going to be totally distraught if we lose because, like you
Oh yeah,
mentioned, we
I
can
won't
jump
be
up
up
in
for the
draft.
record. I won't be upset if we win.
Right.
Like after getting swept by Minnesota and swept by Green Bay, if we sweep the Bears, I'm still gonna at least have a smile on my face. Like
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially
so
sweeping the Bears in a year that we had this, it'd be like, yeah, well, we still beat you, so shut up.
exactly,
It's like
just
when
like
we beat
how
Ohio
we
State
can't talk
last year.
shit to Minnesota. It's like
Right.
yeah, so yeah, I'm like I'm fine either way to be honest, but
Hmm.
I just think long term, the pick is better because I don't
Yeah.
think 2 or 3 years from now, we'll be like, remember when we swept you? Like, get a better
Right.
pick, get a better roster. We can hopefully sweep you every year.
For sure, and I mean that is definitely the logical way to look at it. But with that being said, moving on, I don't even have a score prediction for this game because there is so much stuff up in the air right now, just in terms of like Sewell's not even playing, Anzalone's out, things like that. On top of we don't even know like what the Bears are even planning on doing. So, with that being said, though, the season, like we said, our season is over. It's been over, and the Lions need to make some big changes this offseason. Like, I'm not saying we need to fire Dan Campbell, big changes, but we need to have a good influx of talent, and we need to add a couple more coaches to our staff that can help us out, specifically, offensively. I do think we need to hire an offensive coordinator. I know everybody's talking about Dan Campbell should stay there. I don't think so, man. I think he's a good coordinator, don't get me wrong, but he just hasn't shown to be able to do both at the same time, and he's never had to. So it's not something I want to continue to ask him to do. So definitely not really excited there. And then the last thing I will say, or two more things I will say is Dan Campbell said that Kelvin Shepard did a great job this year as a defensive coordinator. I think that was just because he had to. In my opinion, if Dan Campbell genuinely thinks he did a great job, I don't know what he's seeing on game day. Um, and look, I'm not saying Shepard's a bad coach at all. That's not what I'm saying here. My point is like, there's no way that you just completely fall off as a defense for the past month and you did a great job. Like something happened, something's wrong. You were getting out coached, or your players weren't doing their job, or you were putting guys in the wrong position. Whatever the case may be, it didn't work. So I don't really, I'm going to take that comment with a grain of salt because I know a lot of people are getting upset about it. I take it with a grain of salt. What the fuck is he supposed to do? Go up there and say, no, that guy fucking sucks, man. Actually, we
Yes.
should have fired him 6 weeks ago. Fucking bum ass. Like, we lost because you, like, what do you want him to say, people? You know what I mean? Like, he's got to be diplomatic about it. So, and then my last Lions note this week is I'm not saying that we need to cut or trade him, but we definitely need to restructure Goff's contract this offseason. He is due like $75 million against the cap next year. And if we can restructure, we could open like $50 million. And I saw a tweet recently that said the Lions are currently sitting at like 25 million or something like that. But if they can restructure a couple guys and cut one or two guys like a DJ Reader and things like that, we could get up to $115 million in cap space this offseason. So that's some positivity as Lions fans to realize, okay, we should be able to re-sign our guys and maybe even go add some more talent. So not all doom and gloom, fortunately for us Lions fans. And you know what? We've been here before, so I personally am not even like that worried about it. Like it sucks that we are not good, but you know how much my whole life I never thought we would win a playoff game, and we did that. So we did that twice in one season. So like we just need one off season where we do really well, and I think we'll be fine. That's really all it comes down to. So with that being said, though, moving on to our last portion of the show, which is as always our NFL games of the week. Last week we both chose some pretty good games. I had Houston at the Chargers and Jacksonville at Indiana and or Indianapolis, and the Houston Chargers game was a good one, as we know. Shoot, one second. As we know, it was a good game, and It had a lot of playoff and divisional uh, weight to it, I guess is the best way to put it. And right now both teams are sitting at 11-5. So this week, both games that they play are for the division. So if you think about it that way, that game had even more divisional, weight. And then Jacksonville, Indianapolis was also another good game, interdivision, same division actually. So they've got a lot of good teams over there. And I personally do believe that, um, look, I know a lot of people are going to say the NFC North is the best division in football, but it's like, dude, if you see what the AFC South is doing right now, it's kind of hard to argue against it. You know what I mean? Like two teams that are 11-5. The Jaguars, I think, are 10-6. Let me check. Actually, I'm not
Jaguars are twelve
exactly
and
sure.
four.
Oh, 12-4. So even okay, so I was wrong actually then. It's not for the division. The Jaguars pretty much have that in the bag. Um, yeah, Texans.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
on. The
hold
Jaguars
on.
are 12-4 on a 7-game win streak, and
Yeah.
Texans are 11-5 on an 8-win streak.
Yeah, it's because I'm an idiot and I got confused. I thought the Chargers were in that division and the Jaguars weren't. That's where my brain was going. So the Chargers aren't even in the AFC South, so never mind. They are in the AFC West. Yeah, AFC West with the Broncos. So that's another really good division as well. But with that being said, this week I have Chargers at Denver, simply because that's another really good matchup. That's a interdivisional matchup, and Denver needs to win this game to stay atop the AFC because, like you just mentioned, the Jaguars are 12-4. And the Patriots are also 13-3. So there's going to be a lot of vying up and down this week for playoff spots. So that's going to be a really good game. And not only with that, it should just be a good game in general because, like I said, it's interdivisional, two good teams. So that should be a lot of fun to watch. And then the other one, which in my opinion is probably the game of the week, tomorrow night. We have Seattle at San Francisco. That's for the division, 100%. Whoever wins that game wins the division.
And
Or
the
I'm
one
sorry,
seed.
yeah, and the one seed. So it's a very, very, very big game over there, which is kind of funny because, as I just was talking about, the NFC West is the best division in football right now because the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Rams are both sitting at least 11 wins. So that's
I was
just
gonna
an
say
insane
something, but I was
division.
gonna let you throw it to me.
And I'm glad because I don't know how I just had a brain fart and thought the freaking Jaguars were in the AFC uh, South.
Well, to
Well,
be
I
fair,
guess it
they
would make
haven't
sense.
been relevant for a while.
Yeah, very true.
But they're my
But
honorary AFC team because I
yeah,
feel like they're I just feel like they're the AFC Lions. Not a lot of success long term, so my hats off to them. I'm glad their fans have a great season that they've had and hopefully more playoff success.
yeah,
Obviously, as Lions fans, we know how it is being from the bottom for so long to being on top. So
right. And with that being said, I think the Seattle San Francisco game is the game of the week, not only because it's going for the one seed and it's interdivisional, but man, these are just two very, very good teams. And I'll tell you what, the Niners are basically us last year. I mean,
yep,
everybody's hurt and they're still
yep.
winning games. So it's going to be fun to see. I kind of hope the Niners win this game simply for that reason. Like, look, I know they knocked us out of the playoffs a couple years ago. I don't give a shit though. I'm not one of those people that's going to hold a grudge against the team
It's a
because
new
they
year,
beat
yeah.
us. It's like, who cares? They beat us. And what do I like be mad at ourselves for that, guys? We were up by fucking 17 points. Like, what are we talking about? But no, I'm very excited for this week of football because, as we know, it's the last week of the regular season, and it's going to really make a big, big difference as we go into the playoffs. So those are my two games of the week. What are yours?
Unfortunately, while putting down my games of the week, I deleted my last one, so I do not have a recap on last week's. Um, but for this week, I have the other game tomorrow, Carolina, Tampa Bay, because that is a once again just like in I don't want to say a winner take all, just like Seattle and the 49ers, because whatever team just kind of like last year with the Vikings and the Lions. Both teams are going to make the playoffs. This is for the one seed. This is for the
Hmm.
bye week. There is obviously a ton on the line, as you just mentioned. But this Carolina Tampa Bay game, winner wins the division and hosts a playoff game. Loser goes home and doesn't even make the playoffs. So one of these teams will be hosting a playoff game, and obviously their season goes on, and the other team just flat goes home. Goodbye. So in my opinion, that means a little more. Like obviously the bye week matters, but see, win or lose, Seattle and San Francisco are both making the playoffs at least. But one of Carolina and Tampa is just done. See you
Yeah.
next year. You're right on the couch with the Lions. But so I
Well, and
have that.
especially if you think about it, it's almost like a playoff game in that way
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
like you
Winner
lose, you're
moves
done.
on, loser goes home. It's playoffs right now, or
Yeah.
tomorrow at 4:30.
Hmm.
But so that's my first game, and then my second game is just Ravens Steelers. Neither of these teams is quite as good as they normally are, and
Hmm.
both teams are kind of banged up as well. Granted, this late in the year, who isn't? But these two always put on a great show. Ravens are 8-8, Steelers are 9-7. Um, in my opinion, outside of the division, it's one of my favorite rivalries in the whole sport.
Hmm.
Um, so that's just the other game I'll circle. I didn't want to take the same game you did and or just take both Saturday games because I think those are, in my opinion, the standout two games of the week. So I'm
Hmm.
just going to circle a classic matchup that always just puts on a good show.
Yeah, and and like you mentioned too, that's also got some playoff implications. So a lot of really good games this week, and it should be a lot of fun for us NFL fans. Not Lions fans, unfortunately, we are to the point where we need to pick our playoff team. I haven't had to do that in like 3 seasons, but got to pick a team to root for the playoffs. So I'm thinking it's going to be an AFC team. I know you said the Jaguars. I'm kind of thinking that too, but I'm also thinking Chargers, man. I don't know, just I think because Harbaugh, coming
I'm
from
like, yeah,
Michigan,
mind hardball.
Herbert, I've always loved Herbert, and I just feel like they were kind of a low key team coming into the season. But then again, the Broncos are another really good team. So it'll be a lot of fun these next few weeks trying to figure out,
Well,
who we run a root for and everything.
with the Chargers too, because obviously not only are you a football coach, but you specialize in the O line. The Chargers have both of their starting tackles out for the season, and they have been out for multiple weeks. They didn't like just
Hmm.
get hurt, so they're going into their playoffs, and they're gonna try to do this run and whatnot with both. Like, imagine losing Decker and Sewell at like week 5 or 6,
Hmm.
and then still making the playoffs. So um, I always kind of root for, like you mentioned, San Francisco. I wouldn't mind. I was talking to a coworker about that because I'm like, I don't care what happened a few years ago. It is kind of nice that they're winning. They were winning with Mac Jones at quarterback. Like,
Hmm.
they're overcoming the odds. So Chargers have like, almost that same kind of Cinderella-esque story to them. But yeah, if I do have to just pick one, it would be the Jaguars, just because I remember watching them in the Maurice Jones-Drew years, and um, yeah, it's been bad for them as a
Yeah, and
whole.
I mean, I've always kind of been, pseudo Jaguars fan, if you think about it that way. I got a lot of family in Florida that don't live, I think, about an hour away from Jacksonville,
Cool.
and I've always wanted to go to a game. I just never, made it out there yet. But like, I've always been a Trevor Lawrence fan. I thought he was going to
Yeah,
be the next Andrew Luck, like everybody else
same,
did,
same.
and Denard Robinson was drafted there and all
Yep.
that. I feel like we kind of the Lions and the Jaguars have a very
They gave
similar
touch.
history. Yeah, right. They gave us Hutch. That's very true. That's a good reason to root for him alone right
Yeah.
there. But that's the thing too, and not to spend too much time on it. I kind of feel that way about the Browns. Like the Browns, I think, are the Lions of the AFC. Like they even are
They're
on the
right there.
same lake,
Yeah.
man. We are on the same lake. Like it's just crazy to me the similarities. The only real difference is they didn't have multiple years of success like we did. They had one.
They
Um,
also went 0-16 like us.
exactly. So
They
it's
also have
it's
Jim Schwartz.
See, it's the writing is on the wall, bro.
Yeah.
No, but with that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys for watching. That's going to do it for this one. Check out Fanatics. Link is in the description for anything that you want, sports related, t-shirts, hats, jerseys, everything. They got it, and it's going to be cheaper than you'd get it somewhere else. That I can promise. Um, with that being said, though, as always, we appreciate you guys for watching. You can find me at JSoSweet, James at Gullet_James, and you can find both of us at MIFB Network and MichiganFootballNetwork.com. We appreciate you guys for watching, and we will see you next week.